Good morning. So what is this series exactly? Well, after my dozen or so times of playing through the Pirate101 story, I realized I haven't really ever read the dialogue. Sure, I know major plot points, but I was never enriched by all the dialogue and story this game has to offer. So that is what we're doing today, and for the next few months. I started a new privateer with the explicit purpose to read all the dialogue of the main story and truly learn why it is what we do. Sit back, relax, as we head into the story of Pirate101, experiencing the nuances you may have overlooked, and endure potential side rants about the relevance to today's world. If you like this format, please consider subscribing, commenting, and liking to show me you're enthralled by the Pirate101 story like I've been. Without further ado, let's sit by the fire and get started. So where we ended book 2 was in Puerto Rico and Tradewind Skyway, being told that we have to bring Cortez all the way to Monquista City and Tierra Prometa Skyway and gain an audience with the king and the queen. And we arrive and we experience a little bit of racism as a different species than the Monquistans, and they eventually let us in. We get audience with the king and queen, and they tell us to bring Cortez to Zenda, the prison, and they hand us a little letter, and then we're off to Zenda. Once we're here in the prison, we hand the letter off to the warden, who reads it aloud and says that we and Cortez are to be declared enemies of the state and are to be assassinated, essentially. And so we're like, okay, we're not doing that shit. Cortez is like, bro, if you break me out, I'll help you. So we break him out, we fight the prison guards, and we essentially take over this prison. And we speak to Queen Eleanor here, and we begin to conspire a civil war against the Monquistan government. And as we experience in book 2, there's a lot of corruption with the government of Puerto Rico. It got replaced 2 times in the span of time that we initially went to Tradewind Skyway and finished Tradewind Skyway. So there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of not so good elements of the Monquistan government that Cortez notices, that Queen Eleanor has noticed, all the other queens have noticed, and some of the civilians as well, some of these prisoners like Lorenzo, Flores. And this is where the civil war aspect of Monquista starts to brew. And in return, Queen Eleanor says that if they win power, then they'll give us the treaty that Captain Avery was wanting. Because at the end of Tradewind Skyway, we still did not have the treaty for trade. So this is essentially our new out for Captain Avery to get a trade treaty with Monquista and Skull Island. So Queen Eleanor directs us to Queen Anna, who has already the plans that are put in place for the Civil War. They've been planning it for a long time, but they just quite didn't have enough firepower or manpower in order to enact these plans. So we have to go to speak to Queen Anna in the Summer Palace to sort of get caught up to speed on what the plans are. But once we reach Queen Anna, she tells us that the plans that have been put in place have been foiled, and so we have to come up with completely new plans to overtake the Monquistan government. So with that in mind, we return to Queen Eleanor, who tells us the story of the monkey's paw and how there was a big war over it and it was lost in the scuffle, so no one actually knows where it is. But if we can get it, then we could use it in our power to win the war. The Queen Eleanor directs us over to Don Quixote of La Mancha, who was the last person to have had the monkey's paw. We arrive in La Mancha to the donkey and his sort of apprentice, his friend, and they tell us the story of the monkey's paw.
The monkey's paw is a sacred relic, the preserved hand of Saint Bonzo the Unfortunate, martyred no less than 3 times during the Great Reconciliation of the Holy Church. Blessed by the first banana tree, Bonzo worked many miracles before his 3rd and final death. After his death, Bonzo's hand was fixed to the end of a golden scepter and retains miraculous powers to this day. Any Monquistan who holds it may make 3 wishes, which are granted by divine grace. But if their soul is not pure, their wishes will bring them despair instead of happiness. So it was with my master. Monk Quixote a retainer of the Lord of La Mancha, undertook a great quest to find the paw. After many trials, he found the relic and brought it back to La Mancha. He was tasked to bring the paw to his lord, but could not resist temptation. He made 2 wishes, and despair followed. For his first wish, my master asked for 1,000,000 bananas. He was hungry, you see. For his second wish, my lord sought power. He wished to become a Don, a lord. He wished to become Don Quixote. But this did not happen. Instead of Don Quixote, he became Don Quixote, transformed from a Monquistan into a donkey. The transformation drove him mad. But that was just the beginning of the troubles. 1,000,000 bananas. This is an unimaginably rich hoard. Word spread quickly that La Mancha had a priceless heap of bananas, and every lord in Moquista came to claim a share of the treasure. The war that followed devastated La Mancha, leaving it empty and without a lord. Thus, you find it and my master.
So essentially, this is the monkey's paw of the story. You know, the monkey paw curls once you make a wish, and if your soul isn't pure, the wish doesn't actually happen. It's a trick. So in lieu of that, Pancho Stanza, the monkeyson who was speaking, directs us over to a hermit in St. Barnabo's Abbey, and this is Antonio de Miranda. So Antonio tells us that there's actually a book that covered this Battle of La Mancha that is now being held in Monquistan City. So our next goal is to grab this book and learn about where exactly the paw landed after this battle. But we are an enemy of the state as it stands, so we have to break in through the sewers to get into Monquistan City. So what we do is we go through the sewers, we sneak into the back through the library, and we meet this nice librarian who helps us out and gives us a mask, which I believe you can actually equip. Yeah, so this is the mask that you wear in Monquista City to sort of hide yourself as the enemy of the state that they're all trying to kill. What we learned from the book is that Martin Valvida and his 2 brothers actually took the monkey's paw from the Battle of La Mancha and sailed over to Diablo Cut as an escape plan. And it's worth mentioning that Pancho is only really helping us because he knows that Don Quixote has 1 wish left. And so if we get the monkey's paw back for him, he can transform his master back into a regular Monquistan and then give it to us for our civil war. So once in Diablo Cut, we come across this shield marker that warns us to step away and run back without looking. And, you know, as the pirate, as the main character, we're going to venture deep further into Diablo Cut, where we come across their marooned ship and this gentleman right here. We go into the ship to find the chest of the monkey's paw, but it's empty. So we have Old Scratch use some of his magic on this guy here, just like he did with Captain Gunn, who tells us that the Valvida brothers and the monkey's paw ran into this cave. And it's inside this cave and through this speaker we learn what happened to the Valvida brothers. And we can actually see them in the crown shop, because I'm not going to go through that dungeon again. But Moresco Valvida wished for his troops and him to be able to fly home and return home, which made them into little demon guys with wings, while Martin Valvida wished for his fallen troops to rise and come alive again, but this was in the form of a zombified skeleton. A third wish was made for the troops to get water, but instead of giving them water to drink and quench their thirst, it raised terrors from the deep. And so seeing this, the 3rd Valvida brother hid the monkey's paw in a chamber and locked it behind himself, and hid it behind 3 tokens that you have to get in the dungeon in order to gain access to the monkey's paw. So throughout the dungeon we have to obtain the 3 keys, and once we have the 3 keys, one of which was held by the flying Valvida brother, the other was held by the undead Valvida brother, and the 3rd was held by the terror of the deep. And so once we get those, we can put them in the door that the 3rd Valvida brother locked himself behind, and we come across him and a whole array of monkey's paws. And he tells us that the final trial is to pick out the correct one, and if we pick the wrong one, then we die. But obviously, the real monkey's paw is the only one that has a monkey's paw on it. The others had a bunch of other random animals, so we picked the right one, and we're on our merry way. With Pancho Stanza's promise in mind, we first return the monkey's paw back to La Mancha and back to the Don Quixote so that he can make his third wish and return to normal. Except, as you can see right here, Don Quixote wishes again for 1,000,000 bananas and sort of breaks the economy of Monquista. And so Pancho just gives us the paw and says, here, use it for what you need, but know that you, as a non-Monquistan, cannot use the paw, which is fine. We only need it for Cortez and the Queen Eleanor for the Civil War. With the monkey paw in hand, we return to Zenda and return to Cortez and Eleanor, give them the paw, and wish them luck with their civil war. And in return, the Queen Eleanor gives us a treaty to hand to the Major Domo and the governor of Tradewind Skyway of Puerto Rico in order to start that trade process with Skull Island. And that's essentially where Book 3 ends. It kind of has a conclusion that's cohesive and doesn't exactly lead us to anywhere until Book 4 starts, when the Major Domo gives us a letter from One-Eyed Jack talking about this map that we supposedly have, and everyone's trying to kill us for it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed Book 3. That's the entirety of Monquista. It's a pretty short world. I hope we can eventually come back here. I think the politics and the climate of Monquista is really interesting and really cool. There's a lot more to explore in Monquista, and they even have two skyways that are unexplored. So hopefully we can get some more of that in Monquista. But yeah, thank you.